Like them or loathe them, Breitling is kind of a big deal in watches. Ask a random normie to start naming watch brands and they'll probably get to Breitling sooner rather than later. This is also reflected in Lux Consult and Morgan Stanley putting Breitling in their top 10 biggest Swiss watch brands for the last couple of years in their World Cup League table of Swiss watch brands. F1 Formula One is absolutely a big deal. 827 million fans engaging for 24 rounds a year, multiple days for each of those rounds. Sellouts in most of their races this year, consistently ranked as one of the most watched sports events, and growing fast. For the 5th consecutive year, I read, F1's been the fastest growing sports league on social media. Combine all of that, and when you put Breitling and Formula One together, it's big news for us watch geeks. So let's talk about it. Okay, hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Pete McConville and this is Amateur Hour Watches. Here I like to sit in my upstairs study and overthink, overanalyze and just geek out on watches, which is what I'm doing now, talking about Breitling's newly announced tie-up with the Aston Martin Formula One team and the watch that's come from that. Something I really should get up front is a bit of a warning. Breitling don't know I exist. We have no commercial relationship at all. But the relationship we have is perhaps worse than that. I'm a Breitling guy. The brand, its messaging, its look, its feel, its direction, all of those resonate with me. And so, as I said, I'm a Breitling guy. So with that out, do with that information what you will. So what has happened? Well, Breitling has entered the F1 paddock as a sponsor. They've done a deal with the Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team, and that has resulted in a watch, the incredibly lengthily named Navitimer B01 Chronograph 43 Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team. Okay, this is a watch channel, so let's talk about the watch a little bit. It's based on a classic Navitimer 806 look with a reverse panda dial. This is harking back to a very classic Navitimer, but this classic look is delivered in a cutting-edge 21st century materials. So we get a titanium case, first time for a Navitimer, and a carbon fiber dial, also I believe first time for a Navitimer. So titanium and carbon fiber, all very Formula One. On top of that, we get a host of minor but significant detail design changes. Most obviously, we get the Aston Martin green and with some lime aspects, just like the team. We get some slight changes to the bezel layout and coloration. We get a lot of fun modern lume, which hopefully I'll be able to get a picture of, but I can't really find one now, but I'll keep trying. Hopefully I can put one up now. We get a leather strap, which has been textured to appear like a race harness, which is kind of cool and feels great in the hand, I'll let you know. And we get all the obligatory collab themed rotor changes, case engraving, that sort of stuff. Want more details on the sizing, etc.? Go see the website. You don't need me to read it to you. So what I'm going to do now is just run through some questions that either I've had or I've seen other people have about this watch. First off, let's talk about pricing. How much and are we being fleeced? Well, this watch is going to be 15,990 Australian dollars. A normal Navitimer, either the 43 or the 46, is $13,890. So basically a 2,000 Australian dollar difference for what? Well, actually for a fairly significant amount of cosmetic redesign, a new case and dial materials, first time in both, a new band and clasp design, a new rotor, and a whole host of small details that have been changed here and there. And all of that spread across just 1,959 examples. I wouldn't call that cheap, but in this space, in this segment of the market, looking at what other brands have charged for similar kinds of upgrades, this doesn't feel extortionate. I could perhaps quibble and say it should be a few $100s cheaper. The brand could probably respond and say, yeah, but it could have been a few $100s more expensive. I'd say we are quibbling though. This is ballpark where I'd expect this level of modification to be, and the watch feels about right. Sizing, why 43 millimeters? Doesn't Breitling know that the world is going for smaller watches? I suppose I'd say a couple of things here. One, Navitimers come in three sizes, 41, 43, and 46 millimeters. So splitting the difference, doing the Goldilocks thing, picking the one in the middle just kind of makes sense. Secondly, the Navitimer is a busy design. The big slide rule crowds the time display and the sub-registers quite a bit. And so to stay legible, they have to be a little bigger than your average chronograph. So 43 millimeters seems a decent compromise. And thirdly, we in the watch community, we in the watch social media space have massively overthunk the emphasis on small watches, and that two things. One, the rest of the community never really followed us down into small watches. And secondly, that trend is already shifting a little bit and bigger watches are sort of coming back. So again, combine all of that, 43 millimeters kind of makes sense. But if the Navitimer is a bit of a compromise, as I just said, and it's a pilot's watch, not a racing chronograph, why has Breitling gone with the Navitimer? Now, that is an excellent question. Breitling has racing chronos, sprints, and top times in its history. They would have seemed a better fit here. Why a pilot's watch? I think there's really two things going on. The first is Breitling is trying to make this a marriage between two brands, Aston Martin and Breitling themselves. These are brands that have lived parallel lives. There's really no crossover between those two brands. And so to forge that today in 2025, Breitling doesn't want one of their more obscure watches. They want one of their icons. The Navitimer is the iconic Breitling. To use any other watch would have been to compromise that sort of vision, that ideal a little. Secondly, while there's no real link between Breitling and Aston Martin, there are tenuous links that Breitling can pull on here between the Navitimer and famous drivers who have driven for Aston Martin. So as I said, not a strong link, but there is a thread there. The two drivers we're talking about are Jim Clark and Graham Hill. Got to admit, they are more famous for their exploits in Aston Martin sports cars than Formula One, but you take what you've got. There are some interesting things here too about that, which bring us back to using a Navitimer. Both those guys, Jim Clark and Graham Hill, were pilots, and it was aviation that brought them to the Navitimer, and then it was through that they brought the Navitimer to the track, which is an interesting little thing, and again sort of links the Navitimer to what Breitling's trying to achieve here with this link up. The other thing is, remember that version of the classic 806 Navitimer I showed earlier, which I'll throw up again now? That watch is actually often referred to as the Jim Clark version of the Navitimer. So again, this faint, slight, not very strong, but still there link between Breitling, the Navitimer, Aston Martin drivers, and therefore Aston Martin. Another question I've seen people raise is 30 meters of water resistance, really, for a sports watch? I suppose my answer here is don't sweat it. 30 meters is plenty. All Breitlings, in fact, all watches that claim to be water resistant meet ISO 22810 2010 for water resistance. And if you meet that requirement, what that means is that the whole 30 meters means splash proof only is wrong. It's untrue. It's misleading. That claim that 30 meters is really only good for splash proof has been debunked over and over again. I'm not going to go through it all now. There's a great article in the Swiss newspaper NZZ that describes this. I'll put a link in the show notes, put something up on the screen now so that you can find it. If you want to know why you're being lied to about water resistance, go read that article. But the upshot is 30 meters is fine. A question I haven't seen anyone ask, but has certainly occurred to me as someone who watches Breitling quite closely is, what is Breitling doing here? A couple of years ago when George Kern, well, almost a decade ago, when George Kern took over Breitling, he made a point of trying to change the direction of that brand. And he was deliberately backing away from some things. He deliberately backed away from Breitling's very macho image. He deliberately backed away from sponsoring things like an aerobatic display team. And I'm pretty sure I recall him saying that he didn't see Breitling being involved in sports like tennis, sailing, or motorsport moving forward. And when he spoke about that, he was routinely citing two reasons. One, sustainability and environmental impact. He wanted Breitling to become a more sustainable, more modern, more forward-looking brand, and he didn't want to get associated Breitling with sports that had huge detrimental and worsening effects on the environment. And secondly, he wanted Breitling to be a very generalist brand, open to all sorts of different people, and get away from things that have very niche appeal. And certainly back then, we're talking 2015, 2016, F1 was really a sport for old, rich, white men. Now, in 2026, both of those things have changed radically. I was very lucky. I got the chance to get into a Breitling boutique, see the watch, handle the watch, and talk to the staff. And they were able to pass on some things which have been in their briefing materials, but aren't in any of the press packs. And I haven't seen anyone else talk about. And the first was that they said to me that in their press pack, or in their sort of FAQ that they got from head office, that the sustainability changes within Formula One more generally, but particularly the ones coming in for 2026, changed the game for Breitling when it came to involvement in motorsport generally and Formula One specifically. In particular, things like moving to 100% sustainable fuels, going to a 50-50 electric ICE power split, active aerodynamics and making the cars lighter, all of which massively reduce F1's carbon footprint. They go a long way to enabling F1 to move towards their net zero carbon by 2030 status. And this whole new F1 is suddenly completely consistent with where Breitling's trying to go with their overall sustainability goals. And so, they were saying that where Formula One has gone has really removed that concern from Breitling. Finally, and this is my take, this was not passed to me by Breitling people, there's been a massive change in the demographic appeal of Formula One, which has really changed the calculation for a brand like Breitling that wants to appeal to a broad range of people. This demographic shift has seen the fan base of Formula One become way younger. According to some figures I checked this morning, 43% of fans for Formula One are now under 35 years old. 42% of those fans are now female, and that percentage is continuing to grow year on year. And the brand Formula One, that sport, is becoming, whilst it's still centered mainly in Europe, is becoming massively more popular in Asia and in the United States. Two really important markets for watches generally, but Breitling in particular. So really the two big objections to motorsport and Formula One more specifically back in 2015, 2016 have radically changed. And the kinds of objections that a brand like Breitling might have had to being involved with them back then have basically vanished. So I can really see now why Breitling has decided now is the time to get involved in Formula One. Okay, so that's all the head more than heart industry, business, finance kind of reasons and thoughts around this watch. But what about me as a watch collector, me as a Breitling guy? What are my thoughts about this? What are my feelings about this watch? I should say here, I have handled this watch. I went into a boutique on the day. I've played with it, tried to get a couple of photos, failed. I think I got two that kind of worked. But on top of that, I'd say I love this watch. I think it's brilliant. This watch reminds me of a very similar exercise and a completely different but analogous watch I do own, which is the IWC Pilot's Watch, which was done to commemorate the centenary of the Royal Australian Air Force. In that case, members of the Royal Australian Air Force got together with IWC and melded the classic 1950s IWC Mark 11 layout with a 21st century ceramic case and metallic brilliant blue dial, really capturing the colors and the feels and the technologies of the modern Air Force. This watch has that same, this Navitimer has this same new meets old, historic but relevant today look and feel. One thing I'd say is the Navitimer isn't a bland watch. It's not a watch for everyone. You love it or you don't. And if you don't, there's really nothing much I can say to you that will matter. So you just go on doing you. One thing I'd say is I do love the Navitimer, but I've got a few vintage Breitlings. I've got a vintage Cosmonaut. There's no real reason for me to buy a new Navitimer, but now there is. This watch gives me a reason to buy a new Navitimer. The treatment that they've made of this watch, making it from titanium, giving it a carbon fiber dial, all of those things, whilst at the same time keeping that original 806 layout, manages to keep what's great about the Navitimer for those of us that love it, but also give us something new and interesting and a reason to buy this, even if we've already got another older version of this watch. All in all, I'd call that a win-win. Is the watch perfect? No, there's a couple of things I'd change. I would love to see Breitling revive the twin tail logo that was on those earlier 806s. I prefer it over the AOPA ones. I wish the date was at 4:30 as God intended all dates to be. And I wish it was manual wind. That would make the watch a little thinner. And chronographs are great looking movements and they look fantastic without a rotor getting in the way. I totally understand why Breitling didn't do any of those three things. I just wish they had. The upshot was that basically if I didn't have an awful lot else going on in my life right now, I would have left the boutique with that watch in my bag. I would have taken it away right then. I would have happily spent the money and walked out with it. But, you know, we don't have unlimited amounts of money. We don't get to buy every watch we want, no matter how much we love it. And I've had to let this one go past. With a bit of luck, I don't think it will be, but with a bit of luck, it'll be available later and I'll pick it up later. But who can tell? Anyway, that's me. Over to you. Tell me in the comments what you think of this watch, the collaboration in general. Whatever you want to say, put it in the comments and we'll have a chat. I've been Pete McConville. This is what I do here. If you enjoy it, like, subscribe, do all that sort of stuff. If you don't, downvote it and tell me in the comments how much you hate it. It's all engagement to me. I don't care. Yeah, anyway, that's it. See you later. Bye.